There's a saying my dad gave me years ago that perfectly describes both him and, unfortunately for my coworkers, me. He says, "You're 90% kid and 10% adult. Just know when to act what." And honestly, that's been one of the most practical pieces of advice I've ever received. Because I work at an engineering and architectural design firm. And if you know engineers, you know they are usually pretty serious people. They're brilliant, they're precise, they cross every T and dot every I, and color code the spreadsheet just for fun. They also have a deep, cutting sarcasm that lives underneath the surface. But first, you have to crack the armor. When I first started the job, I kept the 90% kid tucked away. I was professional, focused, polished. I just wanted to keep my job. I filled out the HR paperwork, I spoke carefully, I acted like 100% adult. But eventually, a little crack formed. You see, in my family, we play this game called Over and Under. We bet on pretty much everything. How long will it take mom to run into the store? How many minutes before dinner is ready? How many squirrels will we see on a walk today? Completely useless statistics. No money involved, just bragging rights for about 30 seconds. So one day at work, I started doing over and under bets. How long will this meeting actually last? What are the odds that every engineering discipline turns their work in on time? Is this project going to go over or under budget? My boss, a very serious electrical engineer and project leader, was not impressed at first, especially not with the budget one. But slowly, he started playing along. And I knew I had won the day, not professionally, but culturally, when one afternoon he looked at me and said, "Well, what's the over-under on that one?" I almost started laughing mid-meeting, because what had just happened wasn't about a game. It was about permission. Permission to be human at work. For a while, I even worked in project controls, which means I helped monitor the project budgets. And at the end of the meetings with my boss about project controls, occasionally he would look at me and would say, "Is it wrong to do an over and under on this budget when you're the one responsible for keeping it on track?" And I would say, "I don't know. You set the line." And just to bother him, I'd usually pick the over, just to watch his reaction. Here's what that silly little game taught me. You can be deeply professional and still playful. You can take your work seriously without taking yourself so seriously. That 10% adult in me, it works hard. It shows up early, it gets the job done. It will outwork your 90% adult most days of the week. But the 90% kid, that's the part that keeps people breathing in the tense meetings. That's the part that lightens the room. It's the part that makes people want to work with you. A friend of mine once sent me this quote that said, "I hate when people mistake my childlike wonder for naivety. I am simply a war general who loves to giggle." And she said, "This is you." And she's right. I can be strategic, I can be disciplined, I can handle pressure, but I also love to laugh. Laughing until I can't breathe anymore. I love cracking a joke in the middle of a tense moment, just enough to release the pressure valve so everyone can think clearly again. Here's the problem I see. We think that maturity means seriousness all the time. We think professionalism means stiffness. And we think leadership means stoicism. But some of the best leaders I know are the ones who can command the room and then send a perfectly timed emoji in the team's chat 5 minutes later. They're war generals who love to giggle. And here's the balance. There is a time to act your age, and there's a time when it doesn't matter. If you're 25, don't pretend to be 55 just to look important. And if you're 55, don't pretend to be 15 to chase youth. There's wisdom in growing up. There's also a danger in growing stale, because none of us get out of this alive. So yes, be the adult. Meet your deadlines, crush your responsibilities, lead the meetings, run the numbers. But also play the game. Do the over and under game, or start the trivia thread. Laugh in the hallway, send the gif, lighten the mood. Because when people enjoy working together, they work better together. When the armor comes off, collaboration gets stronger. When laughter enters the room, innovation follows. You don't have to lose your childlike wonder to gain adult competence. They can coexist. In fact, I would argue they must. So today, I'll leave you with my dad's wisdom. Be 90% kid and 10% adult. Just know when to act what. And when in doubt, set the over and under on how long this meeting will last. You just might make it a little more human to work with others.